Hey guys, how's everybody doing? I hope you had a great weekend. This is your reading lesson for Monday. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. So today's lesson, we're going to finish out learning about first and second-hand accounts. So we're going to read two different stories and we're going to compare them. In between the two stories, though, we're going to go ahead and answer some questions. So normally, if we were doing this in class, this would be kind of like an assessment or like a little quiz that I would have given you and you would have done on your own, and then I would have graded it. But we're going to do it together today. I just want to see how you do and how you think you are doing with the learning part of it. And there'll probably be a iReady assignment that will kind of go along with it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read this story. So it's on page 258 in your iReady workbook, and it's called From Ferris's Grand Idea. So I'm going to read two historical articles. So the first one, From Ferris's Grand Idea, Daniel Burnham was stumped. He wanted the World's Columbian Exposition to have a centerpiece to rival the Eiffel Tower from the Paris Exposition of 1889. The graceful iron and steel structure had become a landmark recognized around the world. France's engineering talent now looks superior to America's. Some distinctive feature is needed, Burnham said to the group of engineers at a weekly dinner in 1891. Something novel, original, daring, and unique must be designed and built if American engineers are to retain their prestige and standing. Burnham wanted something that would out Eiffel to draw people to Chicago. George Washington Gale Ferris, a young engineer from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was present at the banquet that night. Hearing Burnham's words, Ferris recalled an idea he had been working on. He quickly scribbled the design on his dinner napkin. It was something he had never done before, a revolving wheel. 250 feet in diameter. It would hold more than 2,000 people in 36 cars attached to the wheel's rim. Each car would be as large as a bus and hold 40 seated to 60 standing people at a time. The wheel was not finished in time for the fair's opening day, May 1st, 1893, but by June, the engineers were testing it. On the first day of testing with passengers aboard, crowds of spectators ignored the engineers' request to stand back. Instead, they rushed the wheel and climbed into the cars for the 20-minute ride. 10 minutes were spent getting passengers off and on. This was followed by a 10-minute non-stop single revolution. Ferris's Grand Idea was a huge success and widely popular. It quickly became the highlight of the fair. It cost 50 cents to ride the wheel, the same as the price of admission to the fair itself. The huge wheel cost $400,000 to build and maintain during the exposition. That was an enormous expense in those days. But its total earnings were more than $700,000, making a tidy profit for the fair organizers. Ferris and the investors who had helped him pay for the project. After the fair closed in October, the wheel was dismantled. It was used several more times, including at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904. But 2 years later, it was sold for scrap metal. It took 200 pounds of dynamite to finally knock the huge wheel off its towers. Ferris's wheel is gone, but its legacy lives on in almost every amusement park and carnival. Next time you're awed by the views from the top, think George Ferris and the vision he had put you there. So that's the story that we read. That's one historical article. We're going to go ahead and turn the page to page 260, and we're going to look at the questions. So it says, what is the meaning of the word recalled as it's used in paragraph 3? So if you go back to paragraph 3, you see the word recalled right here. It says, hearing Burnham's words, Ferris recalled an idea he had been working on. He quickly scribbled the design on his dinner napkin. So Ferris recalled an idea. So what would the word recalled mean in that sentence? Would it mean A, called again, B, remembered, C, came up with, or D, invented? And the answer would be B, right? To recall something means to remember it. So in number 2, there's 2 parts to this question. And part A says, what is the meaning of the word revolving as it's used in paragraph 3? So in paragraph 3, the word revolving says, he quickly scribbled the design on his napkin. It was something he had never done before. A revolving wheel, 250 feet in diameter. So a revolving wheel, 250 feet in diameter. So what would revolving mean? Large, new, turning, or wonderful? The answer would be turning, right? If something's revolving, it's going around, it's turning. And that's what a Ferris wheel does. So which word in the context clue, or was a context clue for the word revolving? So in the sentence, it's also said, it was something he had never done before, a revolving wheel, 250 feet in diameter. So the answer would be A, wheel, B, rim, C, diameter, or D, attached. And it would be wheel, right? A wheel is something that turns, and we know revolving is turning. Okay, on the next page, 261, we're going to look at part A, and it says, what is the meaning of the word dismantled as it's used in paragraph 6? So in paragraph 6, it says, after the fair closed in October, the wheel was dismantled. It was used several more times, including at the St. Louis World Fair in 1904. But 2 years later, it would be sold for scrap metal. So what would dismantled mean in that sentence? A, moved off stage, B, emptied of people, C, taken apart, or D, traveled around. So again, it said the wheel was dismantled. So what would that mean? It would mean C, taken apart. To dismantle something means to take it apart. So which phrase in that sentence helps us with the word dismantled? A, sold for scrap metal, B, knocked the huge wheel off, C, used several more times, or D, closed in October. So if we look for clues within this, with taken apart, and within the sentence that says the wheel was dismantled, we can come up with B, knock the huge wheel off. So that would mean dismantled, and they knocked the huge wheel off with dynamite. So if we look at the bottom, there's a short response, and it says the author of Ferris's grand idea organizes paragraphs 1 and 3 by identifying a problem and telling how the problem was solved. So let's look. What would the problem be in that story? What were they trying to solve? What were they trying to solve? So you have to look in paragraph 1, and why Daniel Burnham, if you look at the first line, it says Daniel Burnham was stumped. So what did he want to do? So the problem was that Burnham wanted something unique to show off. And the solution was Ferris's new invention, a giant Ferris wheel. So he wanted something that was going to be bigger and better than the Eiffel Tower that was in Paris to be at this fair, and something that people hadn't seen before. The solution was they built this new invention, the giant Ferris wheel. So if you need to pause it, go ahead so you could take time writing. If not, we're going to go ahead and turn to the next page. On the next page, we're going to be reading the story, The Ferris Wheel. So this is another story written by somebody. So this is their personal experience with the same Ferris wheel that we were just talking about. So this is our first-hand account of a story, whereas our other story, from Ferris's Grand Idea, was a second-hand account. So that was somebody who had heard about it or had seen it and talked about it. So I'm going to go ahead and read this story to you, and then we'll answer those questions. So from the Ferris wheel. While the Ferris wheel was in process of construction, many people said they would not trust it. A very old man leaning on his staff one day and looking up at it declared, life is too precious to be risked in that way. But the wheel started and nearly everybody is taking a ride. Men, women, and children are seen going up and returning in safety to their friends. Yet some grow pale and get sick to their stomach during the trip, women cry and some become hysterical and sometimes they faint. But most people, it is probably a little trial at the start, but there is a feeling of that courage needs a taste of discipline when its fears go away, where there is no danger. One can often see a workman carried around on the inside of the rim. When the wheel starts, he walks. When it stops for a moment, he inspects a bolt or taps the Megatheron with his hammer, just to hear the ring of the monster's voice. And if you look at the bottom of that story, you can see the word Megatheron is an ancient Greek word that means mighty beast. So that word means mighty beast, and that's kind of what they called it. So if you look at the next page, number 5 here says, read the sentences from the Ferris wheel. While the Ferris wheel was in process of construction, many people said they would not trust it, but the wheel started and nearly everybody is taking a ride. Men, women, and children are going up and returning to safety to their friends. So how did the author organize the events described? Was it cause and effect, compare and contrast, problem and solution, or order of events? So we know from working on all our text structures that this would have to be order of events. What happened first? What happened next? Then what happened? Okay? So it says, read the following sentence from the Ferris wheel. One can often see workmen carried around on the inside of the rim. When the wheel starts, he walks. When it stops for a moment, he inspects a bolt. What does the word inspects mean in the contents of this sentence? He A, removes it, B, tightens, C, looks over, or D, ignores. So when he stops for a moment, he inspects the bolt. What would that mean? It would be looks over, right? To inspect something is to look at it, see if it's okay, make sure it's tight. So if you turn to the next page, 264, we have part A and part B. Part A says, which sentence best describes a difference in the way information is provided in the two texts? So is it A, only the Ferris wheel explains reasons the Ferris wheel was built? Well, we know that one wouldn't be right because they both explain it. Or B, only Ferris's grand idea includes details based on facts and historical research. So we know that's a secondhand account. Let's see what the other ones are. C, only Ferris's grand idea describes what people experience while riding on the Ferris wheel. So we know that one's not right because they both do. D, only the Ferris wheel tells how popular first Ferris wheel was with people who attended that World Fair. So we know it wouldn't be D, so our answer would have to be B. Only Ferris's grand idea includes details based on facts and historical research. We know it's a secondhand account. It gives us a lot of facts and details. It gives us dates and numbers and how much money was made. So we know that that would be our answer B. So in the next one, part B, it says select 2 sentences that support the answer to part A. So we're looking for 2 historical facts. And remember, we've talked about dates and money and times and months and any kind of, sometimes things with numbers or sometimes details that are straight facts that give us a first-hand or a second-hand account. So this one is giving us a second-hand account, so we're looking for the facts and historical research. So we would know that the answer would be B. The wheel was not finished in time for the fair's opening day, May 1st, 1893, but by June, the engineers were testing it. It gives us a historical fact. It tells us it wasn't open by this day, and it was open by this day, so that's a fact. That's not their opinion. That's actually something that did happen. And the other one would be D, but its total earnings were more than $70,000, making a tidy profit for the fair organizers, Ferris and the investors who had helped him pay for the project. So we know that they made $700,000. So we know that that's a fact because it's giving us that specific total. They're not guessing that that's what they made. They know that's what they made. So let's look at our next page, 265, and we're not going to do the short response because we've kind of already talked about it. And like I said, this is a longer lesson. So we're just going to skip number 8 and we're going to go right here to number 9. So we're going to look at this chart. And we're going to compare Ferris's grand idea to the Ferris wheel. So the statement is, presents events as a first-hand account. And we talked about which one was a first-hand because it gives us the experiences. So you'd put an X in the Ferris wheel. That one gives us somebody's experiences, what people felt, what they went through, what happened. So we know that Ferris's grand idea would be our second-hand account of the story. So which one or two tells why the Ferris wheel was invented? You have to go back and look at your story, but the one that tells why the Ferris wheel was invented would be the Ferris's grand idea. Remember, they wanted to invent it because they wanted to make a big statement at the fair. So which one or both tell about the Ferris wheel that was built for the 1893 World Fair? Well, it would be both because they both talk about the Ferris wheel that was built for that fair. And which one or both tells what happened to the Ferris wheel after the fair ended? Do they both talk about it or does one talk about it? And it would be Ferris's grand idea. Why would it be that? Remember, they talked about dismantling it. We talked about dismantling and how that means taking it apart. They talked about how they sold it for scrap metal. So that's the end of Monday's lesson. Hope to see you guys tomorrow. If you can't make the Zoom at 9, I'll have the lesson ready for you. Have a good day, and hopefully you get outside. It's a nice cooler day out today. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.